de lard fumé, des champignons.
On va voir la crème fraîche?
Du carré de veau, s'il vous plaît.
Je repars en mer.
Tu les as, les muscles du vent, les nerfs du froid.
Papa, ta fille est un marin.
Hello and welcome to our weekly film show with me, Eve Jackson, and our critic, Lisa Nesselson. And we're starting with an absolutely delicious and mouth-watering film starring Oscar-winning actress Juliette Binoche and French favourite Benoît Magimel. It's called The Taste of Things, also known as Pot-au-Feu.
Nous passons plus de temps ensemble que bien des époux, à étudier des recettes, à les faire. Ne sommes-nous pas bien ainsi?
Je relève le pari d'émerveiller le prince avec un pot-au-feu de ma composition, avec votre aide.
C'est un peu risqué et audacieux. Je suis si heureuse et reconnaissante.
Il faut de la culture, de la mémoire pour que le goût se forme. Tu dois te souvenir de ce goût.
Oui, monsieur.
The Taste of Things is directed by Franco-Vietnamese director Tran An Ong. It won the Best Director prize in Cannes, and it's pretty tasty, isn't it?
Well, this is set in 1885, and a great many of my colleagues find it sumptuous. For some 2 decades, Dodin Buffon, played by Benoît Magimel, and his live-in cook Eugénie, played by Juliette Binoche, have been sharing their bottomless love for perfectly prepared food and, in a casual manner, their love. Period. Full stop. Most of their unflagging passion goes into the cooking. The sex appears to be what we would now describe as recreational or friends with benefits. Their bond is a given, and Dodin would like to turn it into marriage, but Eugénie sees no reason to upset the perfectly balanced apple cart. It is often said that the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. Cardiologists might disagree. Could the way to a woman's heart take a comparable trajectory?
OK, well, our colleagues on the French channel sat down with Juliette Binoche, who explained why she was attracted to the role.
Ce film-là, il y a la nourriture, mais c'est plus la...
For this film, there was a food aspect, but also the wit that attracted me. And then there's the love story that I don't really see in the other films I've starred in. I'm used to playing parts with a lot of conflict, sex scenes with a lot of passion, but a passion that's not long-lasting, that's more about confrontation rather than gentleness. And it was good for me to work on a film like that, one that gives a viewer a taste other than that of dejection and conflict.
Now, Lisa, the film has been selected as France's Oscar entry. Would you call this a Michelin-starred film?
Well, I know I'm in the minority, but before this nearly 2.5-hour-long ode to obsessively attentive culinary artistry was over, I was longing for aliens to land near the vegetable garden of Dodin's lovely estate in the Loire Valley and start passing out 21st century processed foods wrapped in carcinogenic plastic with disposable plastic forks. I agree that this is thoughtful and accomplished filmmaking, awash in an appealing glow of slow food. To use culinary talk, all the ingredients are there, but this is not what I would have ordered. Many observers were vocally disgruntled that the committee that selects the film that will represent France for the International Oscar chose this instead of Justine Trier's Anatomy of a Fall, which took the top prize in Cannes and has been a major box office draw. And for dedicated foodies worried about culinary accuracy, well, the food stylings were handled by Pierre Gagnère and Michel Nave, Michelin 3-star chefs who have worked together for decades.
Well, it certainly does make you hungry, I have to admit. Moving from an idyllic and imaginary French setting to the incredibly adventurous real life of skilled navigator Florence Arto in the biopic Flow.
Well, stubborn and ambitious Artaud was every bit as good at sailing, maybe even better than the guys who were dominating nautical events in the 1970s through the 1990s. Artaud should have been dead or at least paralyzed several times over. At 17, she was in a debilitating car crash with major neck injuries and a long recovery period. So that she went on to excel in such a demanding sport is inspiring. Her major claim to fame is being the first and so far only woman to win the punishing solo race called La Route de Rome. But you wouldn't find this out from the movie itself. They just assume you know that it was founded in 1978, held every 4 years, starts in Brittany, and arrives in Guadeloupe.
OK, well, let's have a look. This is from Flo.
Je vais la faire, la route du Rhum.
Arrête de délirer, hein, c'est un truc de mec, la mère Flo.
Ça t'énerve que j'ai un bon bateau, hein? Je la gagnerai avant toi, Marin, ta Rome.
La mer des marins, la mer des loups de mer, la mer en furie, la mer sans pitié, loin de tout.
Vous savez qu'on vous appelle la petite fiancée de l'Atlantique aujourd'hui? C'est la première à mettre le mot marin au féminin.
C'est un merveilleux défi, mademoiselle.
I know you're not a massive fan, but will this film blow some people away?
Well, Geraldine Danon, whose first feature this is, knew the real Flo. She may be literally too close to her subject to render Flo's exploits and her contrarian streak sufficiently coherent for newcomers who weren't born knowing this stuff. Some very impressive sailing sequences, all filmed on open water, and a splendid central performance by Stéphane Caillard, who plays Arto from her teens, her late teens until her 40s, are the main attractions here. Now, Caillard boasts a winning smile and a convincing physicality, and that's whether she's setting the sails on rough seas or taking a sex break on the nearest available surface.
OK, well, let's hear from the actress Stéphane Caillard about playing the role.
I was really drawn to her endurance, how she overcame any failures, how she lived with her accidents. I feel like she is someone really of her time, but also somewhat forward-thinking. That's what makes her such a modern-day heroine.
Now, Florence bucked the expectations of her well-to-do family by dropping out of medical school to follow her first love, a rugged textbook sailor who showed her the ropes, as it were. Artaud fell overboard in 2011 and definitely should have drowned, but survived. Flo, floating on her back, staring at the night sky and thinking about moments in her life, makes it all the more devastating to be reminded that she died at age 57 in 2015 in a helicopter crash in South America during the making of a reality TV show with the unfortunate name Dropped.
OK, well, it's certainly a very interesting story, whether the film does justice or not. Well, next to the first ever Sudanese film to be presented at the Cannes Film Festival, Goodbye Julia. It tells the story of the unexpectedly intertwined fates of two Sudanese women. Take a look. Tell us more, Lisa, about Goodbye Julia.
Well, in Khartoum in August 2005, we are introduced to two very different households. One well-off Muslim couple from the north and one dirt-poor Christian family from the south. Sectarian rioting is broken out. Northern Arabs are attacking Christian Southerners everywhere. Wealthy Muslims Mona and Akram secure their property against the violence. The poorer Christian Julia is evicted along with her husband and young son. Nobody wants them there, even though they paid their rent. Mona accidentally hits Julia's son with her car, panics, drives off. And when the boy's father hops onto his motorcycle to follow Mona home and demand an explanation, Akram, unaware of what has happened and convinced that this darker-skinned interloper is an immediate threat to his wife, shoots him dead. Through connections, he will get away with murder. Julia's son recovers, but Julia is now completely on her own. Faking spontaneity, Mona invites Julia to come work for her. And that's just the start of a fascinating, twisty tale set in a society where sexism and racism are givens.
Well, Goodbye Julia threads the tense politics of a divided nation into the detailed story of a quiet domestic drama. Here's the director, Mohamed Kordofani, speaking to the presenter of our Arabic culture show, Liana Saleh.
I've been using filmmaking as a tool of resistance since the previous regime, the Islamist regime. It's one of the most powerful tools because it speaks to your emotions rather than your mind.
So, Lisa, what do you think? Will the film bring to life Sudanese issues for audiences?
Well, yes, because when the action takes place, these characters don't know that Sudan, the largest country in Africa, will soon be split in two along ethnic and religious lines. With so much strife and subterfuge on display, reconciliation of any kind seems impossible. But although the film does scatter hopeful notes that don't feel tacked on, I learned a lot.
Okay, well, let's move on to something utterly frivolous now. American actor John Malkovich lived in France for a decade. He's in every frame of this film, Complètement, cramé, which translates as completely nuts, directed by best-selling author Gilles Le Gardinier. It's adapted from his 2012 novel.
Hardly anybody makes movies like this anymore, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. This is a lazily even-keeled, gentle comedy. 2 English titles for Complètement cramé have been reported. Mr. Blake at your service, and well done! ! Malkovich, who will turn 70 in just a few weeks, plays Andrew Blake, an English businessman who ends up posing as a butler at the manor house in France where he and his late wife first met. Now, Malkovich's French is very good, but his accent is definitely American, not British. This movie is a good test of how excellent actors, Malkovich as Andrew, Emily DeCann as the housekeeper, and Fanny Ardant as the nearly broke owner of the estate, can rise above far from excellent material. If you're a Malkovich fan, stick around. In 2016, he wrote and starred in a movie called 100 Years, directed by Robert Rodriguez, and the movie, which I don't think is all that long, is apparently locked in a vault in the south of France, not to be seen before 100 years have gone by, and that would be in 2115.
Are we going to make it that
See
long?
you then.
Lisa, see you then. Okay, we'll leave you with a glimpse of the low-key antics in Complètement cramé. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Nous accueillons un nouveau collègue pour quelque temps.
Trop la classe. On dirait un British.
Ça tombe bien, je suis un British.
Ça va pas être simple. Monsieur Blake va faire une période d'essai chez nous. Logé, nourri, blanchi en échange de son travail.
Je ferai mon possible, jouer les majordomes ne me déplaît pas. Tu en dis quoi, toi, le chat? Miaou, mi, 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 miaou.